Hello, welcome to my channel. My name is Rebecca and I am a mother of two. And today we're going to talk about the things people don't talk about before and after pregnancy. Now, like I said, I have two children. For the past 3 years of my life now, I have been pregnant and gave birth and pregnant and gave birth. Here is my son that I gave birth to in 2019. And here is a picture of my daughter who I gave birth to in 2020 during the global pandemic. Such a gift. Now, let's get into the things before pregnancy that people don't talk about. So the first thing is things you do to try to avoid getting pregnant: birth control. So I'm now in my early 30s and I was using the pill, birth control pill. And my doctor, my OB, did warn me, just so you know, Rebecca, side effect could be blood clots. Be cautious of that. And at the time I was 27, I was like, I'm fine, I'm healthy, I'm not gonna get blood clots, I'm gonna continue to be on this pill. Well, I started traveling a little bit for work and being in an airplane and the pressure and all of that, I actually developed a blood clot in my leg and in my lungs. Which is DVT and PE, which is this explained for blood clots in your legs and your lungs, which is pretty serious because if you have blood clots in those areas, they can eventually travel and either go to your heart or even sometimes your brain, and you could die. For me, the symptoms, I caught them because one of my other friends had blood clots. She had a DVT and she described to me her experience and her symptoms and how she had to go to the hospital. So the only reason I could tell that, hey, this might be a blood clot, is by her sharing her story with me literally maybe 2 months before I had blood clots. The feeling, it felt like a big pressure ball right behind my right leg that was really uncomfortable. It was kind of uncomfortable to walk. It almost felt like a sprain, but not. It just felt like a bubble on the back of my knee. But I was breathing fine. I didn't feel any pain in my chest. It was all mainly concentrated in my leg. And I remember I was supposed to travel the next day. It was like a Sunday. I started feeling this. I started calling, friends of mine saying, hey, I think I have this. What are your thoughts? Just to get like opinions. I WebMD'd it. I started walking around my apartment in circles. I was like, I can walk this pressure out. Maybe it just needs to get relieved. And finally, it was at the time my boyfriend, my now fiance, who said, hey, Rebecca, this could be serious. You have insurance. Just go drive to urgent care. You might as well. What do you have to lose? So I said, you're right. This could be serious. I am supposed to get on a plane tomorrow. I might as well get checked out. This was all in 2018 that this was happening. So I go to urgent care, I tell them my symptoms. They give you a blood test to check a specific level of something that happens in your blood when you do have a blood clot. I forget the name of that. I'll post it on the screen if I find it. So that test came back positive that I had that trace in my blood. So the next step was to get a scan. So for that, they have to inject this blue liquid in your veins that feels very uncomfortable. And then you go in the full body ultrasound scan. And there they can do a screen of the area that's in pain. And they also scanned my lungs as well to check and see if there were blood clots in my lungs. So we did all the tests, we looked over the results, and you're confirmed positive. You have a DVT and PE. And they said, Rebecca, do you know how serious this is? And I was very uneducated. I didn't know. I felt fine. I just had a little irritation in my leg. And, they basically told me if I would have gotten on that plane, I could have died, which is super scary to think about now. So luckily they were able to put blood thinners. So I was on an IV, I had to stay overnight, they monitored me. They made sure that the blood clots and the blood thinners were working to break up so I could go home safely. And then from there, I was on blood thinners for almost 6 months until I was fully checked out. And from there, anytime I travel now, I have to wear compression socks. Blood clots are something that could now possibly pop up at any time for the rest of my life, because I guess when you have it once, you can get it at any time. I immediately went off birth control, any birth control. It's pretty much a top side effect, whether it's a shot or oral. I believe a lot of non-hormonal birth controls don't have the side effects. So just always check with your doctor and ask all these questions for women over the age of 30 or approaching 30. The next thing people really don't talk about before pregnancy is your doctor. So I told her, I said, I want to get a pregnancy test, like what's the process, let's get it going. And she said, oh no, Rebecca, I am only a gynecologist. I don't have the insurance to give birth. So you have to go and find another doctor. And maybe that was ignorant or silly of me, but I thought, wait a minute. There's some doctors that only do checkups, and there's some doctors that do the checkups and give birth. So for me, that was really disappointing because I had liked my doctor, I trusted her, I was looking forward to going through this journey with her, and then I had to find a completely new doctor and doctor's office, which was actually pretty difficult to find for me and where I lived. Apparently at the time in 2018, I guess a lot of doctors opted not to do that because people weren't having kids as much, I don't know. So just if you're thinking about getting pregnant in the near future, on your next checkup, my advice would be to check with your doctor to make sure that they do deliver and they have that right insurance and license. Really talk about is while you're pregnant and close to the end of your pregnancy, they have to do, it's typically done around, I believe, 38 or 39 weeks. So you're pregnant for 40 weeks. It's basically the 9 months, 10 months and what the doctors have to do is called a cervix exam. So to check if you're dilated. So your cervix is up at the top. So if your vagina is down here, your cervix is up at the top, and your cervix is what dilates in order to give birth to your child. So the cervical check for the doctor, they literally stick their fingers, their hand practically all the way, and they do a finger test. And 1 finger means you're 1 centimeter dilated, 2 fingers, I believe, means you're 3 centimeters dilated, and the goal is to get either 3 or 4 fingers to make sure, and that's when you're 10 centimeters dilated. That's when you're ready to give birth. The cervix check is very uncomfortable. Nobody talks about this. It's something I dreaded during my second child when they said, okay, let's check the cervix. And the whole time they're doing it, I'm like, I'm not numb. This is your hand checking. How is there no x-ray? How is there no ultrasound? How is there something a little less invasive and uncomfortable? It's 2020, like, really? So be mindful of that. That is going to come, and it's something that they do quite often before you give, like right before you give birth. So 39 weeks, and then if you're in labor and you have contractions, it's something that they will continue to do to check how dilated you are. That's all the before birth stuff. So let's get to the fun stuff after birth. So after you give birth to your child, and again, I'm only going to speak from a vaginal birth experience. So after you give birth to your child, they also have to extract what's called the placenta. When you give birth, the doctor has to extract that and push that out. How do they do that? Well, how it was done for me is you basically have to give birth twice. It was fast, but it was very painful, very uncomfortable. nobody told me that that would have to happen. I just thought it like fell out naturally, like a period, like, oh, this will just come out naturally after birth, like everything's already like loosey-goosey. No, you basically have to give birth twice and push it out. So be mindful of that. The next thing I'm going to talk about is breastfeeding. So with my first child, my son, breastfeeding was really hard for me. My milk didn't come in right away. At the time, he was born on Memorial Day weekend, and with the hospital, it was like a full moon, and I remember it was really hard to get a hold of the lactation nurse. And you know, he was losing a lot of weight the first couple days, and we were concerned, so we switched to formula to make sure that he was getting the right nutrition and food. So I remember, like, I didn't pump and I wasn't feeding for like 2 or 3 days, and then after that my milk came in, and that's when I started breastfeeding. But it was never enough breast milk, and I was like, what's wrong? Like, I was eating lactation cookies, I was making sure I was drinking a ton of water, I was eating oatmeal, I was doing all the things that women talk about to do if you would like to breastfeed. And the one thing that I missed was the frequency. So for me, those 2 to 3 days that I wasn't pumping or nursing, about a week out after giving birth, my body was actually saying, hey, okay, we don't need to produce that much milk. It's been 2 to 3 days, so let's slow down these hormones and these processes to give milk. So from there on out, I remember it was, I was still breastfeeding, but I would always have to also substitute formula as well to make sure my son was getting enough food to eat. So learning from that mistake, when I had my daughter, I was mentally prepared. The first 2 weeks, I was constantly breastfeeding. Every 2 hours, I would sleep when she slept, and I just would clock it every 2 hours. Again, this is what worked for me. Check with your doctor, check with your lactation coach, because not every baby needs to eat every 2 hours. Not every baby wants to eat every 2 hours. Both my children loved to breastfeed, liked to eat. They cluster fed. They were in the 95th percentile of size. Like, I am a taller, larger person myself, so that's just my story and what my children wanted to do. But what I found with that technique of breastfeeding every 2 hours for the first 2 weeks with my daughter is my milk supply came in faster, it came in more, I was able to actually store milk. She's in daycare now, so I'm able to pump and make sure that she has enough breast milk. So we haven't had to rely on formula too much. We did use formula a little bit in the beginning because, again, it took a good 5 to 6 days for my breast milk to fully come in. So we did substitute with formula, but this time I made sure that I was. The next thing people do talk about, but not as much, is your hair and your hair falling out. So for me, a lot of my friends and coworkers that had babies, their experience was their hair was falling out towards the end of their pregnancy and immediately after giving birth. I would say almost the opposite problem. I felt that my hair is already very thick and full. And when I was taking prenatal vitamins the whole time I was pregnant, my hair was grow very fast and it was getting thicker. It was healthy. Like, it's true with, at least for me, with prenatal vitamins, it really just helped. And then the whole hair falling out piece with both my children after 5 months, like clockwork, just like clumps of hair. Like, when I'm washing my hair, deep conditioning, and I'm finger combing in the shower, so much hair was falling out. And I just think with me and my body, like, whatever the hormone imbalance is that changes after giving birth, like, that's when it started happening for me. So again, if this happened to you, if you're a mother and you have children, I'd love to hear your story. Please comment down below, if that happened to you, if your hair fell out, and if so, like, when was it? I just think as women, we don't talk about it as much, and I know hair can be a sensitive topic for a lot of us. and a concern. Some women have it better than others. So just wanted to share my experience of after giving birth with both my kids. It was 5 months. And last but not least, something that people don't talk about is, giving birth is a sense traumatic. It's trauma. Your entire body is working and dilating and changing inside to push out this human that you are growing inside of your body. It is beautiful. You have all the endorphins and dopamines running through your body, so you are so happy and just excited to see this child. But people don't talk about it is traumatic. Even with the epidural, with both of my children, I still felt the contractions. I still felt pain. Again, this is my story. I know other women that have given birth and had the epidural and felt nothing, and they sneezed and their child came right out. With my daughter, I got the epidural and she was born very fast. I think my active labor was about 45 minutes, whereas the active labor with my son was more like 4 hours. So it's true what they say, a second baby comes out like that. And I remember when I was giving birth, my entire body at one point was shaking while I was trembling, like uncontrollably shaking. And I said to the doctor, I was like, what's happening? Why am I shaking? Is something wrong? He's like, no, it's just your body. This is normal. This is natural. And I said, no, this did not happen with the first child. Is something wrong? I thought something was wrong with me. But in reality, my body was going through trauma. This is a traumatic thing that's happening. I'm pushing out a human child. I could feel it. The epidural was kind of working, but not really. And from that, my last point, things that people don't talk about, childbirth being traumatic. When you go through a traumatic experience, sometimes there's aftermath and changes that may happen in your body. And for me, in my story, this is what developed. That is a cyst on my foot. I had a very small cyst that developed when I gave birth to my son in 2019. It went away. When I gave birth to my daughter, the cyst came back 3 times the size. Look at this thing. And it's only gotten bigger, and I'm about 6 months postpartum right now. This hurts when I walk. It hurts when I put on my shoe. And that leads me to what my next video is going to be about. I am going to have my own Dr. Pimple Popper moment, and I'm going to get the cyst checked out by a podiatrist, and I'm hoping to record it. And if they do in fact pump it and drain it, I will be recording that. So if that's something you're interested in watching, my cyst on my foot being drained, comment down below. So that's what happened to me. I'm okay. I'm a survivor. I have 2 beautiful children. I count my blessings daily, and I'm gonna get it taken care of. So I hope you found this video helpful, informative. I just wanted to make something a little bit different, something people really don't talk about. And please share with your coworkers, share with your friends. I feel like as women, knowledge is power, and the more we get these types of unsaid things out there, the more we normalize them to open up the conversations to hopefully prevent any bad things that could happen. So that's it. Thanks so much for joining me. Take care. I love you, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye.